Abraham's experience with God was very extensive, at least for the time. At Abraham's time, they didn't have the Bible. There weren't even like really prophets that spoke God's word to Abraham. It was really just God was speaking himself to Abraham. So God spoke to Abraham a lot, actually, multiple times. And so compared to everyone else alive in the world at that time, his experience of God, his exposure to God was through the roof. Whoever, Rahab, on the other hand, was a completely different story. I think the Bible is drawing a very clear contrast where James is saying, he says, you remember Abraham, he calls Abraham our father, and then he references, and then he says, and then Rahab, the prostitute. I think we're supposed to see here a very clear contrast between the foundation of these two people, where they came from, what their exposure, their life was like. Abraham, the father of our faith, and then Rahab, the prostitute. One shows a closeness and a relationship, while the other one shows distance and strangeness. But both of them, we find them in the same boat here, being shown to us as shining examples of living out faith. However, Rahab's exposure, her experience with God was minuscule compared to Abraham. Remember, Abraham heard directly from God over and over. He was given promises by God. He saw miracles happen in his life. Abraham knew God a lot. Rahab, though, in comparison, extremely tiny amount that she knew of God. In fact, the only exposure she had to God was hearing two different stories of what God had done through his people. Rahab was not one of the people of God. She was a citizen of a city named Jericho. And so she didn't grow up around the people of God, didn't know their history, didn't really care about that. But God did two amazing miracles through his people. It was parting the Red Sea when they left Egypt. And then they had faced a really strong army, a strong king in battle, and they had won. And those are the two stories that Rahab said she had heard about God. That's it. She heard it secondhand, and these stories happened like decades before this point. She just hears little whispers of something that God is doing. So I think the Bible is trying to say to us, it doesn't matter what your history with God is. It doesn't matter if you are a seasoned churchgoer and you have been studying the Bible for years and years, your whole life, or if you're just brand new to these beliefs and these truths. It doesn't matter what your exposure to God at this point has been. We all have the same expectation to live out our faith. If you're going to have faith, whether you've had it for 60 years or if you're going to have faith because you've had it for 60 hours, you need to live out that faith, no matter where you are in your process with God.